Hey, what's up, Intigriti fam? Welcome back to Hacker Heroes. In this episode number 9, we're going to talk to Robin de Baets. And Robin is ranked in our all-time leaderboard at spot number 4. So he has a lot of interesting and juicy bug bunny information to share with you right now. So let's go and check it out. Hey, Robin. Thank you very much for being on the show with us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
That's awesome. Can you tell me and the audience a little bit about yourself? Like, who is Robin de Baets?
I'm 21 years old. I'm currently a student, and I live in Ghent, or close to Ghent in Belgium, which is a pretty nice place to be. In my free time, I do a lot of software development and all things related to computers, including bug bounty as well, of course. And I also play table tennis, and I enjoy just going out with friends as well.
Nice. I have done a little bit of research, and I've seen that you're currently doing a master's degree, right?
Yes.
What course are you taking over there? What is the course about?
Yes. So it's a degree in computer science engineering, which is quite broad. So they just try to give you like a general understanding of how like a computer works. So computer architecture, which is like the CPU and networks, and a little bit of math as well, machine learning, and just very broad spectrum of courses. So it's very broad.
Okay. Covers a lot of different things then.
Yes.
You already said that you obviously do bug bounties in your free time as your hobby. I'm wondering, when was the first time for you that you heard about the term bug bounty?
I think I first heard about it back in 2014, which is like a really long time ago.
That is a long time ago, yeah.
I don't think bug bounty was much of a thing back then, which was quite of a shame because I remember back then I was also doing a lot of stuff on websites, just messing around and testing things. And I once found some issues on like a website that our school used for managing like the school grades and messages and files for all the courses. And there was no bug bounty program for the company that managed the website. So back then I emailed those people and said, "Oh, here's some bugs. Fix them. Do whatever you want." but there was not really a concept as bug bounty. But I think this was the first time, because I actually looked on Google, what should you do when you actually find those issues and you don't want to like maliciously abuse them. So I think back then bug bounty was already a thing, but it was still very, very early.
What was their response then? I mean, they're just getting this email of this random guy for them, and how did they respond to you?
Well, they were quite skeptical because I think I was 13 back then, or 14 years old. And first of all, the one who replied to me back was like the CEO of the company, and not even like a developer or like the CTO. And he was not really happy that I was testing on like production infrastructure, which is, of course, in hindsight, not a smart thing to do, especially if you don't have like explicit permission. But this was way back. But he was also happy just because I reported some stuff, and some of the stuff was actually quite impactful. So they fixed it quite quickly, and they rewarded me with like a €50 coupon for like a Belgium web shop, which back then was quite nice.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yes.
All right, so let's fast forward to the first bug that you've submitted on an actual bug bunny platform. Do you remember what that was?
Yes. So I think this was back in maybe 2017. I was on Intigriti. I wasn't really very experienced at bug bounty, so my first bugs were quite a disgrace, I would say. And the first one was some kind of like HTML injection. So I would register a user on a website with some HTML in the name, and then when I got the newsletter, the HTML would render in the newsletter, and it would just show some funny image or something. It's a completely useless bug if you don't escalate it, but I was still reporting it. So of
Right.
course it didn't get any bounty. It was just for fun. But well, that I started with really stupid stuff like that. Really.
Yeah, a lot of people start with stupid stuff, but you you definitely developed a lot of skills over the next couple of years. How many hours do you spend on bug bounties nowadays?
I think between 2019 and 2020, it was around maybe 15 hours a week. I
Okay.
was quite active, especially like during the vacation. When I wasn't at university, it was like maybe like 20 hours a week. Unfortunately, last year it was a little bit less because I had to really focus on university to get through it. Was quite intense.
Hmm.
So maybe it was only like 3 or 4 hours, and I didn't really get a chance to submit many bugs to like real programs because I also just advised some other companies, and I had to maintain those like relations. And
Right.
it's not easy if you have like only a few hours a week, and then to put bug bounty on top of it. But I still want to go back and put some more hours into it. But it's just a matter of finding the time and also the motivation.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I mean, time is always the big factor if it comes to finding bugs. But nevertheless, I mean, you're still ranked fourth in our all-time leaderboard, which is insane to me, even more now that you were just explaining that you almost didn't hack the last couple of months because of university. How does it feel to be right up there?
I think it's quite nice because I remember at some point I was like first in the leaderboard, and this was really something I was proud of. I said it to my friends like, "Hey, on this bug bounty website that they probably didn't know or didn't understand, I'm ranked first." They didn't really care, but I think it was really like a sign that what I was doing was like really good and that I was like in the top of the field at that point.
Hmm.
I think it also helped a lot with building relationships with, for example, companies. If I want to do a penetration test for a company, why would they trust me? I'm like a student. I don't have any experience maybe in their eyes, but when I show them, look, this is, for example, Intigriti. It's one of the largest bug bounty platforms, and I'm ranked quite high here. Then they think, oh, maybe he does know what he's doing. So it has really helped me in that regards.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it still takes a while until companies start recognizing, let's say, a rank and a leaderboard. But in my previous role, I was interviewing penetration testers from unlike the company side, and I totally took that into consideration. Like if you say, oh, you're ranked number whatever, I mean, it doesn't have to be number one, but like even number 17 or something like that in a leaderboard, that tells me a lot about that person, and it's definitely a huge plus. So yeah, definitely
Yes,
something good to show in even like in a CV, for example.
definitely.
So quickly speaking about the Integrity platform, is there anything you like a lot about it? I mean, I assume you've hacked on different platforms before as well, but what is so special about the Integrity one?
So I'm quite a big fan of Intigriti. I think 80 or 90% of all reports I've ever submitted were through Intigriti. And I think uh, one of the things I like most about it is that it's very easy to reach out when there's an issue. For example, on some other platforms, you submit a bug and you don't get like a response for 2 months, and you wonder what's happening, and then you email the support agents from the platform, and like a week later they respond, "Oh, we don't know. We'll try to follow up with you." Then it takes another 5 months or whatever. While on Integrity, it's I usually you get responses very fast on your submissions, and when there's a delay, which is usually because the company is like on vacation or something, you can email or just private message the Integrity support, and you get a response quite quickly, and they're always transparent. Like sometimes the bug bounty platform just can't help it because the company is just being slow.
Yeah.
So Intigriti has always been transparent. Like, look, this company, they're being a little bit slow. Maybe they have a long queue of reports that are still waiting to be processed. And I really like this aspect. It also makes it very personal. You can just like build a connection with the people that work there. And especially when you submit a book and you see it's the same triager just reviewing it, it gives a sense of, oh, well, they probably know you and you know them, which is a nice feeling.
Right. Yeah, thank you very much. That's really awesome feedback, and I will definitely pass this along to our corresponding teams. So once again, speaking about bug bounties, you obviously have had a lot of success before, otherwise you wouldn't be ranked that high on our leaderboard. What was the biggest surprise to you that happened to you because of your success in bug bounties?
I think this comes down to the point I mentioned earlier, where if you say to someone, "Hey, look, this is I'm ranked this high on this big of a platform," they usually immediately think a lot more of you compared to just saying, "Oh, I hack on some website." So I think that this was quite surprising because maybe when I started, Intigriti wasn't as big, but over time when I grew on the platform, Intigriti has also grown a lot,
Right.
which definitely helps if I say, look, Intigriti is a big platform, and sometimes when I say this, people already know the platform,
Mm-hmm.
even if they're not into like cybersecurity, just because, well, Intigriti has a big reach to a lot of companies. So the surprise to me was that they will appreciate your rank, or just appreciate the fact that you can list a couple of companies where you reported issues. That was quite nice, and I didn't anticipate that when I first started.
Yeah, I never thought it about that way. It kind of, so you're kind of saying like your reputation grew with Intigriti growing and being more well known to Belgian
Yes.
companies, but like also to companies all over the globe, right? That's kind of an
Yeah.
interesting insight. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to talk a little bit about the bug bounty, like a little more about the bug bounty scene. Do you have some hackers you regularly collaborating with, some friends you're hacking along with?
Yes. So at the previous live hacking event from Intigriti, I was quite active with Kuromatai, which is
Mm-hmm.
also a hacker on Intigriti. He's very active, or was very active on Red Bull. I think the king of Red Bull. But he was a nice hacker to work with. We collaborated a lot, also with a friend of him, Calimero, with like two O's at the end. Um, and they were very nice to work with on the last event. We built tools, we collaborated, we sent code, exchanged IDs, wrote reports together. Even though it was virtual, unfortunately, it was a very nice experience. I also collaborated a lot with 0x Casper, which was also like, I think, an upcoming talent on Intigriti. I think back in May of this year, we worked together on a web shop, and we really tore this thing apart. Just us two combining ideas,
Mm-hmm.
discussing potential strategies to like exploit certain bugs. It was a very nice experience, and I think it was very rewarding because we really found like very nice bugs, not really bugs that you think, is this even worth reporting? It was actually really nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, obviously, if you work in a team, you can always achieve more than just by working by yourself, right? By the way,
Yes.
for everybody watching right now, we do have a new Discord channel with a channel inside of that called Collaboration or Collab. And yeah, if you also want to collab like Robin is doing, you might want to check it out. And I will link it for you down in the description, and then you can be like Robin and hack along with a lot of other hackers, which will give you a lot more insights and more ideas. Yeah, coming back to the bug bounty scene, Robin, do you have anything that you would do differently, or where you would say it would be awesome if we could change this tiny thing?
You mean like in the past from my own experience? Or?
No, just like if you have a wish about like not just the Intigriti platform, but like all platforms in general, is there anything where you would say it would be really nice if the platform would be different, or if the platform would have this feature, or if we could have, I don't know, like this and that in the scene that would make it better? Is there anything like that on top of your mind right now?
I think what would be nice, in my opinion, is if companies were more more fluctuating with their bounties. So usually they just give you a set amount for a specific severity, or like medium or high
Right.
or whatever. But sometimes there's like very big steps in between severity. Like a high book might be 500, while as a medium book might only be 100. But I think a book is very hard to classify in like a specific severity. So in my opinion, it would make more sense if companies were more like opinionated, and they would just say, okay, this book, it's not a medium, it's not a high, it's somewhere in between. And like compared to a slider, okay, the medium is at 100, the high is at the 500, but you can put like a slider in between, like, okay, I think the impact is this high,
Totally see
this
your
high.
point. Yeah.
Because for some hackers, especially if you're doing this like as a full-time job for money, it kind of sucks if you get like way less money just because it barely didn't reach a certain severity. So I think it's something that more websites should consider. I know some programs, I think Shopify is already quite
Yeah, there are some that
is
have
already
that.
doing
Yeah.
this.
Like
Yeah.
a lot of them are basing it on top of like the CVSS and just
Yes.
multiply it with whatever, like a fixed amount of dollars or something like that. But yeah, you're totally right on that end. It's something we should consider a little more and see if we can make this work. But it's also a little hard. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
go into details right now, but it's definitely not a super easy thing to achieve.
Yeah. Definitely, because it's very subjective. Like, if you just put a certain severity using like the CVSS scale, okay, it's this severity. But if you're being a little bit more subjective with, okay, the actual impact is this or that, sometimes the hacker might not agree. So, or the company might not agree with what the hacker thinks. So, yeah, it's definitely a tricky thing,
Tricky one to
in my
solve.
opinion. Yeah.
I want to go back a little bit to you as a person, like your hacking experience, the way you hack things. And my first question is, you're approaching a new target. You have not done anything yet apart from like seeing the company's name. What are you doing first?
I usually hunt on like smaller scopes, so I don't really like wildcards a lot because
Okay.
it's just a lot to manage. So when I just have like, for example, a specific portal of a web shop in scope, I just try to find out who are those developers, what kind of code do they write, because there's a lot of different types of developers, and some of them like Windows, some of them like Linux, and they have very specific types of technology. I can quite easily see when I see a website like, okay, this type of developer has built this, especially when they're using like older technologies. I know that the developer was probably like a senior engineer who hasn't really well studied the newer frameworks, and he's just using the old things over and over. So I just try to look like the general like vibe of the website, what's going on in terms of the code or just the feeling, and then I look at like what kind of frameworks are they using. So if I can see like a framework that's being disclosed in a header, it's quite useful. I also use like the extension Webalizer, which shows me which technologies they're using. I think especially if you're searching for like XSS, it's really useful to know whether they're using like Angular or AngularJS, like an old version, because there's a lot of different ways you can exploit that.
Right.
So I just try to get a general understanding of how did they build this, because I also built a lot of websites myself, so I can quite easily guess what kind of things are going on behind the scenes.
Hmm.
And then I just use the website. I create an account. I just click around. Uh, I perform some actions, try to enter some forms with random data, and I just collect all the data in Burp. Uh, and then when I got a get general understanding of what they're doing, I just try to go through every endpoint I've ever seen. Like usually when I click through things, I see some endpoints and I'm like, this looks quite fishy. Maybe there's like no CSRF token, so it's probably vulnerable, but maybe it's not really impactful. So then I just go back to all these points I have, and usually they're just in my head. I don't really write anything down, which I should try to do more actually, but I just try to remember what I just visited and then just go in depth.
Hmm.
I throw some random parameters at it. I try some like weird inputs, and usually this works out quite nicely, especially if you like open a lot of endpoints that loaded user data. And for example, there's a parameter with your user ID. If you remember all these endpoints, you can just try around a couple IDs of like other accounts you made just for iDoors or stuff like that. I sometimes automate this with like the extension auto repeater in Burp,
Hmm.
which like automatically repeats requests with other headers or cookies. But usually it's just all manual. I don't really use uh, any kind of automated buzzing or even subdomain searches. I do this sometimes, but also not often. Uh,
If you look at an input field and let's say a specific parameter that is getting sent to the web app, I mean, you were just saying you're doing it manually, but when you see it, do you usually have like a set of payloads where you say those 10, 20, 100, I don't know how many you're having, those I will always try out? Or are you like, okay, on top of my head, I want to try this, and that one right now, and the others I'll just leave out because it doesn't really make sense to me right now.
Yeah, I usually try to go for some like polyglot payload first.
Hmm.
So a payload that would probably trigger if there was an SQL injection, or that would probably trigger if there was like an XSS injection. So like a couple of quotes, like double quotes, single quotes, smaller thans,
Right.
at signs, maybe even like 0 bytes or stuff like that. I don't really use a lot of payloads, but I just try to get some good ones in. And when I notice that if I tried an XSS polyglot and uh, it being properly escaped, I just move on to the next one. I don't try to like try 100 payloads because usually if it's being escaped properly, they're using like the right
Yeah, there's nothing left
functions
to
in the
do, right?
backend, and it's not really worth just throwing other stuff at it. Maybe if you're like going like really really in depth, it's probably worth creating like a word list of potential payloads, like maybe with like some special UTF characters. I remember seeing a bug where they had like a smaller than sign, but it wasn't really a smaller than sign. It was in like some weird encoding,
Hmm.
and for some reason it normalized to a smaller than sign, and then the person could get XSS. I think this was in Rockstar Games. It's a public report. So if you want to go this in depth, yeah, I would probably go for a word list. But in my experience, I can usually find most of the things just with like even a couple payloads, like one or two or three.
Right. Very interesting. Very interesting. Do you, so speaking about the juicy stuff, which is findings and submissions, what was the coolest thing that you've ever found?
Yes. So I think a while ago I found together with Zero X Casper, we found some kind of query injection uh, in a program, and it wasn't like the regular SQL injection. It was a special framework, uh, and luckily when we sent like a specific payload with, for example, like a quote or a double quote, it triggered like an entire stack trace, which disclosed to us which query language it was. Because if we didn't get the stack trace, we would have never exploited this.
Hmm.
So due to the stack trace, we managed to find out, oh, it's this query framework, and then we had to do a lot of research. What can we actually do with this framework? Because it was quite limited. If you have like an SQL injection, there's like a ton of functions to potentially get data out of their
Exploited, yeah.
database. but with this query language, it was really, really constrained. So in the end, we found out that by using like some kind of smaller than or greater than, we could guess how many entries in their database had, for example, an email address that was larger than a specific value.
Mm-hmm.
And based on that, okay, there's maybe 1,000 people that have an email address that, for example, starts with the letter A.
So it was like a Boolean based
yes.
injection? Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't really a Boolean. It was more of like a count. It returned how many entries matched, which was really weird because it didn't return the entries, but it just said, okay, there's so many entries. And then we had to write some Python code to exploit this. And what we did was use like a binary search algorithm to go through all possible characters. So, for example, if you're targeting a specific customer, we first start like in the middle of the alphabet. We say if it's larger, okay, then the first character is in this range. If it's smaller, is it in this range? And then we split it again and again. And it took like quite a while to get this working, and also to make this performant, because it had to do quite a lot of requests, even though it's a binary search. But in the end, I could just enter like an ID, and it would throw all the plain text data after like a minute of processing. It would just show the info, which was a really nice moment, because we had been working on this book for like 2 days and with like barely any results. But at the end, I finally got like the plain text data, which was a really, really nice moment. It really made us very happy.
And you, I guess, got a bounty for it, right? So they must have been happy that you found it.
Yeah, I think it was like critical or something, which we didn't anticipate when we first found it, because it seemed so unexploitable. So it was really like a journey to get it from something useless to something slightly useful to like, okay, we got the juice, we got the very sensitive information.
That's awesome.
It was a nice journey.
So you were already mentioning that you're a big fan of Burp and that you use it a lot, but if we leave Burp Suite aside, do you have any tool that you use a lot, that you really love, that is like always part of your hacking engagements?
I think aside from Burp, I don't really use any like specific tools. Maybe every now and then, like their search to just check a couple directories and files. But usually, my main tool, I would say, is Python. So
okay,
I'm quite fluent in Python, and it's very easy to just throw some lines of Python together and maybe iterate a specific endpoint or try a specific header or whatever. And specifically within Python, I like the requests library, which is HTTP library, but it's quite limited, but it works very nice. And if I can cheat by saying I like a specific Burp extension, which isn't Burp, I'd say it's Turbo Intruder, which is actually also Python. So I like Python because it's very easy to write, but Turbo Intruder just adds a layer of on top that makes it even easier to use, because there's so many scenarios where you have like an endpoint and you want to iterate a couple payloads or a couple IDs in a specific parameter. So Turbo Intruder makes it very easy to do this. And then it just shows the results in a single table where you can see, okay, this response had like a slightly different content length, so there's probably something going on there. So I really like this extension. I don't really use a lot of other tools, I would say. It's just mostly manual. The rest.
I have a completely different question right now. How do you react when you find a massive bug?
Usually, I'd say very happy. Sometimes slightly worried, because depending on how good the bug was, I probably expect someone else to have found it earlier. So, but sometimes it's when it's like really good. Okay, I was probably the first one to find this, because otherwise it would have been fixed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are the best moments when you really know, okay, I found this. I will probably be the first one to submit this. It's a really nice feeling.
Do you like jump up and celebrate, or are you just staying calm?
Usually I'm just like, damn, this just happened. And then I just go, usually just, I just write a report and then I just close the PC and go away. And
Right.
then I check every 5 minutes whether they triaged it. So it's a stressful process, but usually it's just a lot of joy and then a lot of time being worried about whether it's going to be accepted or whether there's going to be like,
Right.
oh, this was an internal issue and we didn't fix it on the staging environment. Sorry, but usually it's joy. I would say.
Do you have any bug bounty goals for the next 1-2 years?
I think because I haven't been able to hunt a lot in the past months, my main goal now would be to just get back into the flow, because I do search for issues every now and then, but I'm not doing like the consistent hunting like I was doing earlier.
Mhm.
I remember like a year ago when I was in university, when I would get an email of a new invite, for example, on Intigriti, I would just immediately take my laptop and enter the scope into some program to get it through burp and then just hack away like immediately, especially to find like the early bugs.
Mhm.
But nowadays it's hard to find time to do this. So I think my main goal is to just get back into that flow, because it's very, it gives you a lot of adrenaline, I would say, when you're in the moment, especially if it's a very new program and you're the first one to explore this fresh scope. It's a nice feeling.
It's
Uh,
exciting. Yeah.
yeah. And also, I think another goal would be to go to another physical live hacking event. I've been lucky enough to be invited to 2 events in the past, but unfortunately, the second one was virtual. But it
Yeah,
would be
those
nice
those will
to meet
hopefully come
some.
again when COVID is
Yeah,
over. But obviously, we're living in times of a pandemic where things are a little harder. But let's hope
yeah,
COVID is going to be history soon, and then we'll definitely have some live hacking events again. I can promise you that.
it would be nice to meet some of the people I've collaborated with, because they're all just faces on a computer. But I would
Yeah,
like to put like a real person on, see a real person and talk to them, get to know them, and
totally. Yeah,
uh,
I totally understand
yeah,
that.
that would be very nice.
So, one last question about Bug Bunny. Speaking to a complete newbie, person who has no experience or maybe 2 weeks experience of doing bug bounties, what's the one advice you would hand over to that person?
Hmm. I would say learn to use Google very efficiently and use free resources. So don't spend any money on like a Burp Suite license if you're just starting. Don't buy any courses. Just go on the internet and look what's out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think a website I like a lot is pentester.land or something, and they have a list of public bug bounty write-ups. Usually it's just links to Medium articles, and it's all free. You can just read it and try to understand what are all other people finding, because if you don't look at what other people are finding, you're not gonna find anything yourself.
Yeah.
So uh, my main advice would be to don't spend any money and use existing write-ups to just get a grip of what are people doing, what are common causes of bugs. So maybe there's XSS. If you don't know what XSS is and you read a bunch of write-ups where they use payloads and that get reflected, you can probably get an understanding of, oh, okay, payloads are being rendered and it's becoming HTML and it's getting executed. And especially for more complex bugs, maybe like SSRFs, they are hard to find. And if you read write-ups, you can say, oh, an SSRF can occur through a PDF generator because it's rendering a URL, or
Mm-hmm.
an SSRF can occur through a webhook if you can configure a webhook in an application. And all these possible ways to get a bug, you can only find them by reading write-ups,
Right.
because or you can use your own imagination, but usually it's better to just look at what other people are doing.
Yeah, sure.
I
Like
have a
use the
I
existing
have a
knowledge
lot
of
of
others and
yeah
use it for yourself.
I
Absolutely.
have a lot of respect for the people that just put out free write-ups and resources. It's I think it's something that makes it easier for the starters to really grow and gain knowledge quite quickly.
That is an absolutely solid advice over there. And if you're a newbie, make sure to make use of that. I want to ask you a couple of would you rather questions right now. Are you ready for those?
Yes, let's go.
So, would you rather choose to hack on the Bug Bunny program of a car manufacturer or of a government agency?
Yeah, I'd probably say a government agency because I want to know where the aliens are. So,
finding
no, but
finding that juicy information somewhere in the database.
yeah, I just think you're gonna have maybe a larger impact on a government agency. I think car manufacturers. Yeah, maybe you could halt the processing of like the factories, but I don't think they have a lot of sensitive information. I think a government is probably a little bit more interesting, especially if they have like records about their citizens. There's a lot of juicy information there. And also from experience, I know that government doesn't really have like the best developers. So there's probably some bugs to be found there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Would you rather search for Flash-based XSS or click-checking vulnerabilities?
I think clickjacking, because first of all, Flash is dead. I don't think it's even working in the latest Chrome. And clickjacking, I think some people are skeptical about it, but I've seen like very limited situations where it's actually useful. So I would say even though it's bad, it's still better than the other one.
Okay.
So I would look for this.
In like very limited situations. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I take that. Would you rather buy yourself a new washing machine or a new vacuum cleaner from your Bug Bunny money?
It's a hard one. I think probably a vacuum cleaner. I don't know why, but I don't really need a washing machine.
You don't need the vacuum cleaner either, I guess. But yeah, no, okay.
Yeah.
I take that. Would you rather try to hack a Rolls Royce or an Aston Martin?
I think probably an Aston Martin. So maybe if you find like a bug to get some special effects on the car, you can become James Bond.
Get like a little role in one of the next movies and
yeah,
maybe be their hacker guy. That'd be cool.
maybe if you can get into like the interface of the car, you can build some custom extensions, maybe like fire or turrets on the front of the car that can get triggered or something. Yeah, but I don't know a lot about car software. All I know it's also not really the best kind of software out there. There's also a lot of issues. So I think either one would be an interesting thing to look at.
All right. And the last question I have to you, and I'm asking this, I guess, all my guests. A lot of people always say, like IT security is so fast paced at whatever age 50, 55, 60. I probably need like another career because it's just too much. If this would happen to you and you have like 30 years to go at this point, but still, would you rather become a party clown or a casino dealer after your IT security career?
I think probably a casino dealer because there's a lot of sketchy people in the casino that you can probably do some business arrangements with. Well, a party clown, he usually doesn't really have a lot of credibility. I think a casino is an interesting place for some people. So I would probably choose that one.
And maybe still keep hacking a little bit on the side, like underneath the table, hack the casino while working there.
Yeah, probably hack the casino would be the main goal. There's some interesting movies about this, so I've already garnered some ideas.
From all the good Hollywood movies, yeah, I
Yeah.
can imagine. All right, Robin, let's wrap this up. Do you have anything left you want to share with our audience? Do you have any shout outs to people? Then now would be a good time.
I think I would just give a general shout out to Intigriti. As I said, when I started on the platform, I didn't really have any kind of reputation, and Intigriti was also on the smaller side. But over the years, both me and the platform have grown, and I think this has mainly been due to the Intigriti team being a uh, very supportive of their hackers, and also just thinking about the future. They're always thinking about new uh, companies to onboard, new things to add to the platform, and I think this has really shown a lot of success. Intigriti has grown so much, and it has also given people like me. I'm just a student, but I can hack away and earn nice bounties whenever I want, and it has given people like me the chance to do this. I think I don't, I can't really think of any other way for someone my age to make like money online just doing something every now and then. Like most jobs are just you work an hour, you get something.
Right.
But for a student to just be able to hack and get a bounty, it's an amazing concept, and Intigriti is very supportive in this. So I think I have a lot of things that I would be thankful for because of Intigriti.
Well, I'll take those final words. Thank you very much for that. I will once again pass this on to the entire team. And yeah, thank you once again, Robin, for the interview and for being on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much again, Robin, for being on the show with us today. In our next episode, we're talking to a hacker who's currently climbing the ladder on Intigriti, and he is ranked second in the last 90 days leaderboard. And I'm speaking of Flora. So make sure to check out our next episode. And in the meantime, go down to the comment section and let me know who you want to have interviewed. And apart from that, subscribe in the top right corner, give us a like, and I will talk to you soon.